modernizing India's railway, shaping the country's information and broadcasting, and also working on its digital ambitions. Geeta Gopinath, Gregory and Anya Coffey Professor of Economics at Harvard. Geeta is someone who has shaped global economic thinking on growth and risk, from her leadership at the IMF to now at Harvard. Sunil Bharti Mittal, Chairman of Bharti Enterprises. Sunil Bharti Mittal is an entrepreneur who has helped define modern Indian enterprise. Bharti Airtel is a global communication giant and is responsible for India's mobile revolution. Mr. Herrera, CEO and President IKEA Group, one of the world's most recognizable brand. I'm sure all of us here have one piece of IKEA at some point in our life. As a CEO of the IKEA Group, you're looking at a deeper engagement in India. Welcome, all of you. At a time when much of the global economy is grappling with uncertainty, India stands out as a rare bright spot. On Monday, in its World Economic Outlook report, IMF revised upwards its estimate for India's economic growth for 2026 from 6% to 7.3%. The fund projected global growth at 3.3%, while describing India as a key growth engine for the world. In fact, many describe India as having a Goldilocks phase, strong growth and moderate inflation. Many projections suggest India could overtake Japan and Germany over the next few years and move into the global top 3. But momentum is not destiny. The real question is about timing, execution, and choices, and what does India need to do to convert this moment of opportunity into economic transformation? I'm going to start with you, Minister. When you hear this framing, can India become the third largest economy? Do you feel we're asking the wrong question? Should it really be, when will India get there? And if so, how will we get there? What are the two things that will help us, and what are the two things that could halt us?
India will become the third largest economy in the coming few years itself. It's not a question of will it become. It's certainly, that's a certainty that will happen. It's a question of within the next few years, we will definitely become the third largest economy. What's working very well is the last decade of very transformational change which has happened in our country. And it's a very well thought through, well-defined and very focused execution. It's built on 4 pillars: the pillar of public investment in physical, digital and social infra, the pillar of making sure that the entire society grows along with the growth of the country, so very inclusive growth. Third, the pillar of manufacturing and innovation. Fourth, the pillar of simplification. All this combined with the base of technology that we have put, we can very clearly say that India is going to grow with 6 to 8% real growth and a moderate 2 to 4% inflation and a nominal growth of 10 to 13% with 95% confidence interval in the next 5 years. So that's the kind of growth journey which is there, we can say with a lot of confidence. And what's working very well is that the entire society is seeing the benefit of it. When we look at 540 million new bank accounts opened, when we see 130 million toilets getting constructed, when we see 800 million people getting ration every month, month after month, that shows that the security of the poorest comes as a priority for our government, for Prime Minister Modi ji. And that has helped us bring 250 million people out of poverty. So these two factors, a very well thought through growth path, very inclusive growth, are going to be very good for our country. What's really a matter of concern on our minds is the global debt which is there in the rich world, the huge amount of debt, the mountains of debt in the rich world, how that debt will unravel. What will be the impact? We saw yesterday in Japan, there was a run on the bonds. So that kind of thing, if it happens on a very large scale, what will be the impact on our country is a matter of concern. Otherwise, everything else is in a very good shape that we will become the third largest economy in the coming years.
Okay, so we'll talk a little bit later about what other things that you are doing to insulate us. But now on to you, Geeta. Do you agree with that? Is India's ambition to break into the top three a reality? What's your view?
Without a doubt, India will become the third largest economy of the world. It's a matter of a few years, unless something catastrophic happens. If you just look at the math in terms of India's growth rate relative to Germany and Japan, it would be very hard to see how India would not get there. And based on current projections, India gets there by 2028.
Wow.
It could be even sooner than that, depending upon how the revision of the GDP numbers happens at the start of this year, I guess relatively soon, what happens with the rebasing. So that is not the challenge for India. The challenge for India is not about becoming the third largest economy in the world. The challenge for India is about raising per capita incomes to higher levels. And indeed, I agree with the minister that substantial reforms have been undertaken. The physical infrastructure build out is impressive. The digital infrastructure build out is impressive. What was done with the goods and services tax, including the simplification recently, extremely helpful. So to keep the momentum going and to keep raising per capita income and getting to the 2047 goal of Viksit Bharat, I think that's the challenge. And that will require keeping up with the steady pace of reforms to get there. But again, lot of positive developments in India, and very important is the macro stability that you have in the country, not just with growth where it is, but also with inflation being at the low, single-digit numbers. That is a good spot for India.
So you have said earlier that the two things that could hold us back, one is land acquisition is a little bit messy, deregulation, and you have said we've not really used our demographic dividend to its fullest. So what are the things that you think we can do to fix some of those?
Yeah, I think a little bit messy is probably an understatement. It is a tremendous challenge in India to acquire land, to have clean land titles. And that is a constraint on growth. It is a constraint on manufacturing. Again, there are states in India that are experimenting with techniques that other states can also adopt. I think Andhra Pradesh is doing a good job in finding very creative ways of helping with selling of land, shifting land from being agriculture to commercial land. Land titling, again, pushing on that is important. Judicial reforms, I think, are absolutely critical. That is a very important bottleneck for growth in India, and it's been there. I think people have seen it as a long-standing challenge, but we're not seeing many changes in that front. In terms of the labor force, you're right. We've been talking about the demographic dividend in India for a long time, but if you look at the contribution of labor to growth in India since the 1980s, only about 30% of India's growth has come from labor. So it is a fairly capital-intensive production structure that India has because of the rules and regulations that exist and the complications of hiring labor. Now, it is a very positive step in terms of implementing the labor laws that were passed by Parliament a few years ago. I think that's great. The states need to take that and go ahead. Raising the limit on the number of workers above which you face higher regulation from 100 to 300 is good. Though if you want to be a part of the big global supply chain, you're going to have to be way more than 300 in terms of the size of the labor force that you have. So pushing on that front is important. Labor market flexibility is critical. On top of that is the skilling of human capital. I think that is a very important part of the solution too. It's not just about the fact that firms aren't creating jobs. There is a mismatch between what jobs can be created and the skill of the labor force in India. So pushing on that front in terms of the level of education and human capital and skilling, super critical.
Minister, would you like to come into any of the comments that Geeta has made? Anything you'd like to add?
We follow a model of cooperative federalism where the central government and the state governments, we work together to bring out many of the reforms. And some of the reforms which are happening in Maharashtra, in Andhra Pradesh, in Odisha, many of these reforms are now becoming the template for other states to follow. And the labor reforms implementation is a major step. GST simplification, labor reforms, opening the nuclear energy sector to private sector, and reforms in practically every sector We have two groups of ministers which are working on half the ministries in one group, half the ministries in other group, where we are going down to the procedural reforms, to legal reforms, to every possible reform that we can have. And I'll request all the participants present here, in case you feel there is any particular point which is hampering your growth in India, do come out. We are here to listen to your problems and solve them. We are here to be the catalyst for your growth in India. Yeah.
Excellent. Mr. Mittal, you're a pioneer of India's digital revolution. Much of its growth would not have happened without you. You helped build the networks on which we are now growing. What do you think is the next thing we can do to turbo our growth? And what do you think is leashing us?
Well, I think India is generally in a great spot. You already heard that it's a matter of numbers, mathematics. We will get there to be number 3. And if I put a spiritual metaphor around it, I would say it's written in the stars. The question is $6-7 trillion for 1.5 or 1.6 billion people doesn't stack up. So we will get to number 3, but we need to get to $25-30 trillion. And we can quibble about the year in which we'll get there, but we have to get there and we will get there. What do we need? My tribe, the business community, needs an enabling environment, need a committed government, needs stable situation in the country. All that is available now. One factor that is coming to challenge our growth that we are currently on is massive competition that has occurred in the world today. US was a huge market for China to grow itself. And they used 20-30 years of that wonderful moment to build their factories, to build their manufacturing bases, go into deep tech, earn a tremendous amount of money to shore up the economy. That opportunity is not available for India. So we will have to find our own ways and means. Thankfully, we have a huge market. India is a continent of consumers, young people consuming more and more. We will be signing, hopefully, the EU trade deal very soon. Yeah. UK is done, Australia is done, New Zealand is done, UAE is done, many more in the pipeline. But the big one with the US hopefully also gets done soon. We heard from Secretary Lutnick this morning, America must bring everything back to manufacture in America. That's a change. We need to deal with that new shift in the global trading norms that we'll have to deal with. Give us more backing from the government, give us more freedom. We have a prime minister who understands the power of business. He uses the industry and industry players to scale up the country, provide more employment. The PLI scheme that has come out, I never thought during my lifetime India will be a manufacturing destination for electronics or telecom equipment. All that has changed in the last 5, 7, 8 years, just in the last 5, 7, 8 years. Massive amount of exports of Apple phones and many other products are happening now. I remain very, very confident that the energy that I see in India, and now I work in Europe, I work in France, I work in the UK, and I can tell you, we will continue to grow at the rapid clip of 6, 7, 8, hopefully in some years even higher, whereas the world will be settling at 0.5%, 1%, or minus in certain years. We have a good future for us. What can derail us is only the competitive intensity of the world play now that we need to deal with, and that really lies in the hands of the able government, how they deftly deal with the trade deals.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Herrera, you've seen India through many, many years, and right now with IKEA on the ground. From a global CEO's perspective, how does the world view India's growth story?
First, I have to say that I always make a disclaimer when talking about India. I am emotionally biased with India because we live in the family, my wife and the 2 children, for 6 years. And so I call myself an Indian ambassador in the business community. So
unpaid as well, this is the best.
Disclaimer made, disclaimer made. No, of course, India, you have to be in India. There is an option because it's, you know, it's a big market, it's a young population, it's also a democracy, it's the English-speaking country. But also at the same time, India has had, is having, and will have the possibility to leapfrog from agriculture to the most developed AI much faster than any other country. You know? So we see, of course, very positive India in that sense.
So, Minister, you said in the first question I asked you that one of the pillars is simplification, which is basically deregulation. And many times, whoever you speak to, that is one of the concern areas. So can you talk a little bit more about what are you doing to make ease of business happen in India?
Absolutely. In the last 10 years, 1,600 laws, old, antiquated statutes have been removed from the statute book. Can you give a similar example anywhere in the world? 1,600 laws have been removed. 35,000 compliances have been removed. A big exercise is right now going to reshape the legal structure tuned to modern times, because many of the laws were written in a time when the government and the political setup of that period, I'm saying of the early from 1950 to 1990, that was a period when the governments were basically very inward looking. They were very protectionist. They were not looking at the energy of our people. They were trying to control that energy. So many of those laws are being rewritten now. So that's a major exercise which is going on. Second, many of the procedural things are getting changed. Mr. Mittal is witness to get a telecom tower permit. It used to take 270 days. Now it takes 7 days. To get a railway terminal connected to the railway network, it used to take 6 years. Now it takes just about 2.5 months. So that is the kind of simplification, procedural as well as legal, is happening in the country. Our entire criminal justice system, which was of 1800 some vintage, so that has now totally been transformed into a new structure. The Telecom Act was of 1854 vintage. That has been replaced by a brand new 2023 Act. So practically every sector, we are trying to bring in a totally new legal framework, a totally new procedural framework built on the technology stack that we have.
Okay. So, Geeta, I don't know whether you know, but there's a Rajiv Guava committee which is looking at deregulation. I want to ask you, is making another committee to get rid of bureaucratic red tape the best way forward?
Well, I assume that this is not just a committee for its own sake, but the hope is that it's going to come up with actual actionable plans.
Yes.
Absolutely. I mean, India needs a lot more deregulation. It is still, in terms of ease of doing business, it is still a challenging place to do business. I'd love to hear from you in terms of what challenges you face. So taking out more and more of the archaic rules that have held back business is absolutely critical. But then all other aspects of India will also have to continue in terms of the reforms will have to continue, the ones we talked about on land and labor. One of the areas I wanted to point out, which we usually don't talk about when you're talking about business development, is I want to talk about pollution. Mm-hmm. Pollution is a challenge in India. And if you look at the impact of pollution on the Indian economy, it is far more consequential than any impact of any tariffs that have been put on India so far. If you look at the annual cost to India's GDP of the level of pollution that you have, and it's not just the effect on economic activity, but it's also the loss in lives. I mean, the numbers are really large. Based on a World Bank study that was done, I think it was published in 22, about 1.7 million lives are lost every year in India because of pollution. That's 18% of the deaths in India. I think even from any international investor's perspective who's thinking of coming in and putting up a shop in India, if you have to live there and you have the environment is not of the kind that you feel that, okay, this is going to be consequential for your health, it holds you back. And obviously, not to say about all the Indians that are living in this kind of pollution. So addressing that on a war footing is critical. I mean, this has to be a mission, a top mission for India.
Along with deregulation, we're putting it right up there.
Along with deregulation for India, yes.
So, Mr. Mittal, you work in other countries, you just mentioned in Europe, and you've been working in the US as well. What are the lessons that India can take from there for ease of doing business? You know, what are the things that we can adopt?
Well, I can say certainly nothing from France or UK. No, it's much harder, much harder.
Oh, really?
There. Oh my
Okay.
God, oh my God, it's much harder. And they also have the, additional burden of the Brussels bureaucracy, which they have to deal with. There's just multiple layers there. I would say US is a good model, where business is really highly encouraged and the ease of doing business, I would say, to a good level. And of course, there are examples, fine examples in Singapore and UAE, etc. But I would echo Honorable Minister's point of view here. India has come a long way. I mean, I'm a product of, I started in '76. So I have
You're
seen...
giving your age away.
Yeah, it's fine. But I am telling you, I've seen this plethora of books, handbooks, manuals, standing outside in DGTD, CCIE, hundreds of departments getting one license to get something into the country. All that is gone. 1992 or 91, 92 was one big wave. And I would say in the last 10 years, a lot has been done. Can more be done? Yes. We as business community will keep on asking for more, transfer more faith onto us, have faith, we will do the right things, we'll be more compliant. Indian companies have much better governance standards today than they were in the 90s and early 2000s. I think this government is engaged. I hope and really I'm confident that this committee is set up for a real reason, because the Prime Minister recognizes there is still much more to be done in ease of doing business. And I remain very hopeful something good will come out of this.
Okay. So I'm adding on to the question Geeta kind of asked you about doing business in India. Is it easier to do business in India or in China? And what would be your advice to a global CEO coming into India at this moment in time?
At IKEA, we are present in many different forms in India. IKEA is present in the sourcing side, engaging with many suppliers, and not only producing in India for India, producing in India for the global supply chain with export. We are present with the retail business, where we acquire land, where we really go full in with our retail business model. And we are present in many cities, and we will grow significantly. We are also present from the energy sector. We are a big investor of renewable energy. Worldwide, we produce double than we consume globally from renewable. And in India, we have recently announced an investment of solar park in Maharashtra. But also we are present from the digital side, which digital services for the global company. But also we are acquiring also and investing in AI Indian companies, so especially in last mile. So we touch many parts of the governments, and we touch many parts of the different ministries and so on. So on that side, doing business in India, half full glass, what is really good, and then what is the opportunity, half empty glass. In the half full, it is true that it's a process of simplification. And then what it is even more important, when you face the blocks, you knock the door and you are heard. I always praise the IAS officials. They are fantastic across the country, because they listen to you, you meet them, you discuss, and then it's important. Sometimes things are a bit more complex, you need to find a way, but they are with you, so they don't ignore you. I think every time we have faced issues, we sit down, you have to invest time, but you sit down and then you share and then you are helped. And I see something that I really recognize from India. What is needed to do more in the future is try to find ways, harmonization with global standards. If I take an example, production of furniture. Do you know how much India accounts for the global production of furniture in the world? 1%. Can we agree that India deserves more than 1% of the global production? Of course, we agree on that. That's why, for example, the new legislation on QCO, increasing standards and the quality, we welcome very much the intent. We are really supporting that India increase the standards of quality, because that will help us, for example, to export globally. Then the implementation has to be done in a way that it is done in a smooth way, and it doesn't come as a law, it comes as a way to support the suppliers as well. So it is the implementation which is equally important for the future when it comes to harmonization of standards. And then advice, the last question is coming from your advice from the CEO. I don't want to be pretending that I know everything, but with experience, I would say 3 things. Don't come to India for the short-term payback. If you come with short-term payback. India doesn't need you. Come with a really long term, and we are here for the really long term. We are owned by a foundation. There is no profit that goes to private shareholder. Everything gets reinvested into the business, and we have a super long-term approach. So long-term. The second one is engage. Engage with the Indian stakeholder. Engage and in a true partnership, and invest time. And the third one, try to understand India from inside and not from outside. You cannot come to India with your prejudgment, your biases, and to pretend. You need to go. I invested a lot of time personally. We didn't take consultant company when we set up retail in India. I personally engaged, meeting customer on the shop floor, customer on the homes, meeting IS official, listening. So you have to really come with a genuine interest of understanding India from within, and then things will work.
That's really good advice, but I'm still going to put you on the seat and ask, India or China? What's easier doing business?
You know, we are a global company. We need to operate globally. So we have to operate all over the world. And then the important thing is not choosing one or the other. The important thing is whenever you go, you have to go with your full set of values as a company. You have to go full in, and then you have to really find a partnership. I often say that so home is the most important place in the world.
Yeah.
And we are in the life at home business. It is because of that we truly believe that we can help many Indians to have a better life at home. At the same time, I am saying quite often, India is helping IKEA to be better. We are learning massively from India, and we take this learning globally.
Okay, I'm going to take that as India. Okay, going to come to a little bit on tariffs, sir. India currently has one of the highest tariffs imposed by the US to any country, almost 50%. How is India insulating its growth story from this?
We are a very resilient economy. The fundamentals, macro as well as micro, are very strong, and that's really helped us through this turbulent period. Our exports have actually increased despite the tariffs. Our producers are finding new markets. We are growing our export sector in multiple ways. For example, electronics exports has now become the third largest exported commodity out of India. After, of course, engineered goods and petroleum products, which was like unbelievable even 10 years ago, even 5 years ago, this was unbelievable. We are trying to expand the market, going to new geographies, and also simultaneously we are engaging with many markets, many geographies for good, balanced, healthy, mutually complementary trade agreements. We have had with UK, we have had with Switzerland and 2 more countries. We have had with UAE, with Qatar, with Australia, with New Zealand. Another one is right now in works with Europe. So lots of engagement globally, and a fundamental change which has happened in the last 10 years is India has emerged as a very trusted value chain partner, not just supply chain partner. A supply chain partner would be manufacturing to your designs, manufacturing to your specs. A value chain partner will be partner to you in the journey of design, in the journey of understanding what the customers need. In the same room 3 years ago, when we discussed semiconductors, people thought that India will never be able to manufacture semiconductors. And when I say the value chain partner, today, the entire semiconductor industry believes that India is the most important trusted value chain partner, right? So that feeling, that positioning of the country is very important for us in resilience, in managing the turbulence that we see.
Okay. Geeta, I don't know whether you caught Prime Minister Carney's speech yesterday in Davos. He basically declared independence from the American-dominated past. I want to ask you the question about dealing with tariffs in that context.
I saw some of his, what he said. It was pretty powerful. Indeed, it was a statement about the current global economic order and how that has basically ended, and that we have to, form new alliances. Yes. I think there was a big call to that. First of all, I don't think the movie is over. It hasn't ended yet. We will have an important speech later today.
Yes.
That could change everything. So I don't want to sit here and speak profoundly about what the consequences are of what we've heard so far, because it could all be very different tomorrow, right? I mean, one of the reasons that the tariffs that have been announced so far from the US has not been hugely consequential on the world is because the actual level of tariffs, and I did some research on this with the co-author last year, the actual level of tariffs is a fraction of what the headline numbers and announcements are, right? So the statutory rate is about 24%. The actual rate is about 14%, right? So because there's so many exemptions and so many carve-outs. So every time I hear a number, I'm like, I want to wait and see exactly where something sticks. So that's my first piece, is that we just don't know where all of this is headed. What I will agree with, and I think that we don't need to wait for, is that we have permanently moved away from the previous last 80 years of the global economic order. It doesn't matter what comes next, but we're not going back to the time when we had completely close to free trade across all countries in the world. I think national security considerations, economic security considerations have become important for good reason, I think, and therefore the pure efficiency-based model of we're going to buy from the cheapest source is not going to happen, and more countries are going to be looking inwards and building up their own shop, especially in sectors that are important for their security. So I think that has changed. There is no one West anymore. There never was a one East. You know, there was always India, there was China, you couldn't talk about a one East. But we used to talk about a one West, which was, there was the US and Europe were always together, and that's not there anymore. So I don't think there is a one West either. That doesn't mean there's going to be a whole-scale breaking up, but we're not going back. This is a shift that's going to last a long time. And like I said, the movie isn't over, so keep watching.
So one of the things that the minister said, actually, that they are looking to do deals with other countries and trying to sort of insulate the impact of tariffs. Some people are saying this gunboat capitalism of the US is leading to MEGA, which is make Earth great again, versus MAGA, which is make America great again. What do you think about that?
Okay, so firstly, I do want to mention that what we saw in 2025 was that not just India, but China, pretty much every country in the world, found a different market to sell their goods to, or found a different market through which their goods went back to the US, right? I honestly don't think that's a sustainable strategy either. So I don't think we're in a space where this can continue and everybody can have very high levels of tariffs, and India can have 36% tariff rate, and somehow, you know, India would find new markets to send their goods to. There is going to be retaliation. Europe will retaliate to all the flood of goods coming from China. Other countries will too. Maybe India will be concerned about this, a point that Sunil made. So it's not a viable strategy. But what is a viable strategy is indeed having more trade agreements with other countries, which India is doing right now. European Union is doing with Latin America, South America, Mercosur. So those kinds of, I think, you know, agreements, moving on that front is important. In terms of, you know, making Earth great again, are you talking about the fact that we may be moving to something more sustainable, or?
Yes, more sustainable, more markets, not dependent on, you know, one country sort of bullying others into their
I don't know why that becomes make Earth great again. But anyway, I do understand the sustainable part. So, I mean, I think a lot of things have taken a bit of a backseat, and sustainability has taken a bit of a backseat. There is an inherent momentum in it that I think will continue in many parts of the world, including in India. That momentum exists. But if you look at what the trajectory could have been if the US was also a part of all of the climate activity, that would have been a much more stronger transition path. But that said, again, I think that, you know, train has left the station. I do think, and it's not just about sustainability, and it's not just about the environment. For many countries, it's energy security. Instead of having to rely on fossil fuel imports, if you can rely on sunshine in your country and use that to produce energy, it's good for your, you know, your economic growth. It's good for job creation. So I think that will continue. Among the risks that the planet faces are climate-related risks, so that's not going away. You know, there's a lot of distraction right now, but we still have to deal with weather-related shocks.
So one of the things that Geeta said, and you've mentioned as well, is uncertainty. I mean, she's saying you have a headline, they say a particular tariff, but she still waits to see what is the effectiveness. You have dealt with uncertainty and very challenging situations. What would be your advice to CEOs in India and around the world that are dealing with this kind of a challenging situation?
No, in the end, you know, you have to make yourself stronger to get the best deal. I mean, we have seen how China was not pushed back by the US the way they wanted to, and they quickly backed off. We have to make ourselves big. I think one great advantage that we have is we are a market for everybody in the world. It's 1.5 billion consuming, hungry, young Indians taking more products, more services every day. It's also producing for the world now. It will have a tremendous amount of leverage with many other parts of the world to have the right deals. 83% approximately of the world trade moves away from the US between everybody else. I don't think so it'll ever come to that you will not trade with the US, but if it becomes completely untenable in terms of tariffs and all that, the world will react. And they will find ways, as rightly pointed out in other markets, other places. What India really needs to do is scale. Scale its technologies, scale its production, get to a point where they have consumer surpluses so they can sell to the world like China. That will take some time. The good news is that India recognized very earlier on that this is time consuming and capital intensive. You have to build more roads, more ports, more airports, more railways. This would have taken 10, 15, 20 years and hundreds of billions of dollars. How did India mitigate this? They quickly recognized, I would say, credit to the government and the Prime Minister, get a digital highway in place of world order, the best. Provide enough energy to fire it, because there's no point having a digital highway with no energy. These two things were taken on a priority, very high priority. And on that, you dropped a digital stack to connect everybody for banking, for health services, for everything else. This has provided us cushion to wait for the hard infrastructure that is being built up in the manufacturing, in the real hard infrastructure. And you can see year after year after year, India is getting stronger. My own belief is eventually India will get a fair deal, even from the US. I remain confident.
Okay. So how have the tariff tweets affected your assessment of doing business in India? Because you source and you have a marketplace as well.
Yeah, no, we have a big global supply all over the world. And then building on Gopinath, the trade is like water. If you close something, the water will find another way. But then the point here is that the point I'm building on Yumital, the point is that I think there is too much noise now on the here and now on the short-term impact. And we are putting too much energy as a society on mitigating the pain. I strongly agree with you that these are the times, these are defining times. These are the times where you can build a new competitive advantage, where you can leapfrog as a company, as a country. Let's take one example, where we are heavily investing and at the same time we are advocating. Is the marriage in between sustainability and affordability. We are investing in circularity. And you know, the more you invest there, the more you can secure, A, is good for the planet, B, is good for the wallet, because many people today are struggling. So day 2 of the month, almost the whole money is gone. So it's good for the people, but also it builds independence. Independence not only in energy, but on trade. What does it take that India produce with the waste that is created in India? Because if you have that approach, you start to depend less on global trade. And the same will happen with other countries. So we need to find win-win opportunity where we really decide not to put the money in mitigating the pain, but putting the money in really leapfrogging as a competitive advantage. And I think India is one of the countries where we can, India has proven, India impressed me. I was living in India when the Aadhaar card identity got implemented. More than 900 million people got it overnight. The election, 900 people voted in 1 month with no disruption. Doesn't happen in other countries. And then the interface payment, the demonetization. So India has proven that when things come together, it can really leapfrog significantly. Okay. So what does it take that India now takes the opportunity to really be the leader on sustainability and affordability, because it comes with these three big benefits?
Yeah, I have 4 minutes, and I do want to get into AI, so you will have to keep your answers a bit short, so that I can, give everyone a chance on this. Right now, the AI race seems to be between the US and China. Do you read that correctly, or does India have a place in this race?
India is making very significant progress in all the 5 layers of AI stack. We have already become one of the largest AI-based services provider to the world. Entire IT industry has pivoted from software services to AI-based solutions. The second layer, the model layer, our stack of sovereign models is progressing very well. We must understand today that 95% of the work can be done with a small 50 billion parameter model. You don't require a trillion parameter model to do the things that you need in your day-to-day life and in your enterprises. Our focus on semiconductor industry, the third layer, is very strong. We are investing $70 billion in the fourth layer, the infrastructure layer, and energy, which is the fifth layer. We have opened it up. They opened the entire energy sector, the nuclear energy sector, to private sector, so that we can have a sustainable, clean energy for the AI world.
Geeta, AI is affecting jobs in coding and call centers, which is very big for India. Do you think we can make this pivot like the minister is suggesting?
It will take directed, conscious effort to make that switch happen. It's not going to happen very quickly. Indeed, business process outsourcing, for which India was a big beneficiary of, that is going to be impacted by AI. These call centers, as you mentioned, coders and coding in general, going to be heavily affected. Now, India does have the plus that it does have a good digital infrastructure, which it continues to build on. It has a lot of skilled engineers and an IT sector that supplies the world, so that gives it a good holding. But we're going to have to find ways of coming up with new kinds of jobs. That again comes back to the original point about skilling up the workforce, making sure that they are able to benefit from AI. In terms of, if you look at the statistics about how much is India exposed to AI, how much of India's labor force is exposed to AI, it's about 26%. The average for the world is 40%. That's just a reflection of the fact that still a very large number of Indians work in agriculture, right? So that transition has still not happened. Productivity in agriculture has not gone up enough to push people out of agriculture into industry and into services. So that transition is still ongoing. So there is less exposure to AI in that sense for the entire labor market as a whole. But like every country in the world, I think this is going to be an important challenge. India is already capital intensive for the reasons that I mentioned earlier. If we end up with services also becoming capital intensive in India, then there is going to be a problem with enough job creation. And here, labor market flexibility is, again, super important.
So we just have a few seconds, but I want to get into it because you offered Perplexity free to your entire mobile network, right? I want to ask you what your view on AI is, because we are offering pervasive access to our market to foreign AI players. How do you see that?
Yeah, I think India will find this very frugal ways of getting to AI development side. I think we have the minds, we have the brains, and as the minister rightly pointed out, there will be new models which will not require $1 trillion commitment, but maybe tens of billions of dollars. India will do that parallelly. As user of AI, we have now injected in various form factors in our business. Spam is one. Billions of messages, billions of calls from protecting our customers from fraud. Our whole network, from design to management, is run on AI now. Agentic AI is pervasive all over. Yes, some call centers are getting affected, and some different jobs will need to be found for those. But as a country, I would say India is well positioned to make good use of AI for its productivity, automation, and improvement in the economy.
I'm sorry, I'm completely out of time. I'm not going to be able to give you the question on AI. I'm going to conclude. I think this has been a very good news session. I think everyone agrees that India is a force for good, and it's written in the stars. And I hope that this Goldilocks fairy tale has a happily ever after. Thank you very much, all of you.